Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the View from the Clipper podcast. I'm your host, James Warner, as always. I am joined today by Josh Sexton. Josh, how are you doing this afternoon?
Doing well. I'm glad for the break, All-Star weekend. Feeling a little bit run down going into it, which shows just how intense the start of this season has been, really, especially if you're a Clippers fan. We've never been out of the news, let's be honest, have we, since the aspiration stuff came out in pre-season. So it feels like it's been foot to the floor since then. So it's no surprise that this break's coming at a good time for me. How are you feeling, James?
Exactly the same. It's been a crazy few weeks in particular in terms of news for the Clippers. We spoke last week around the blockbuster trade where the Clippers sent James Harden to the Cleveland Cavaliers in exchange for Darius Garland. That had literally just happened, I think, maybe even the day before. We ended that podcast by saying, we recognize the deadline is, a week, I think it was the day before the deadline. And something might happen in which, we're going to have to discuss that. I think I didn't touch on what it could be or what ended up being, but I think I mentioned maybe Kawhi getting traded and sort of a crazy scenario. And that, in fact, did happen. It happened pretty much the next day. The Clippers have traded Ivica Zubac and Kobe Brown to the Indiana Pacers for Benedict Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, and two first round picks and a second round pick. One of those first round picks is the 2026 Pacers pick, which is protected 1 through 4 and 10 to 30. So it will convey if the Pacers in the lottery get a selection between 5 and 9. If it falls outside of that range, it will become a 2031 first round pick. There were a lot of rumors, I think, in the build up to trade deadline, even going back maybe as early as November, when the Clippers were struggling, to say that Zoo could be moved and was movable. And I think the Pacers were always the most heavily linked team. I think they've been seeking a starting center ever since they gave up Miles Turner to the Bucks. And I never felt that it would happen, but it really started to gain traction towards the trade deadline. And there were some media outlets, I think ESPN, Brian Windhorst in particular, I think came out and said this could actually happen today, and there is serious momentum behind it. And then out of nowhere, the trade was announced. I can't remember who was first, but I remember seeing the Shams tweet. I was actually out at the time, and my initial reaction was just devastation. I think from speaking with you, Josh, when it had happened, you'd also felt the same. So I do want to get your reaction on it. I know we are maybe a week late to the news, but we've had time to digest, and both players, including Isaiah Jackson as well, have swapped teams, and at least for Mathurin and Jackson have played for the Clippers, so we can react to how they've got on so far. But yeah, how did you react when you saw the notification from Shams, Josh, that Zoo is no longer a Clipper?
Yeah, fairly similar to you, as you say, James. Like I was just like overcome with sadness at first. I think we've kind of maybe like arguably been a little bit in denial, sort of speaking from mine and your point of view, really, that Zoo would be moved. I understood that, like, in the background, people were saying everyone on the Clippers is movable, and obviously there's guys like Zoo who are real assets, so they're going to have high prices. I guess I was kind of like caught between I don't think a team will pay the high price, and that, by the way, seems to be like the line that's kind of coming out of the Clippers, if rumors are to be believed, in the last few days, is that they set the price that high because they genuinely didn't think anyone would meet it. The trouble is, like, again, it kind of comes back to the thing, like, I don't know if the Clippers have ever realized how good Zoo is. So, like, his value in real life, and I saw a couple of like Clippers commentators saying this as well, like his value in real life is so much more than like what it would seem on social media, and I think that's like usually the opposite way around for players, really. But Zoo is a really, really valuable center. He's, for me, one of the top five centers in the league. Good offensive rebounder. Good from basically anywhere inside around the restricted area, I should say, because he's also got the floater game. Just big, powerful, good footwork, good, like, got better with his hands. That used to be the thing that like I came on here a couple of times and criticized him the most for in the sort of early days us doing this podcast was that his hands weren't all there. That got so much better, which I think is, testament to him, of course, but that relationship with him and James Harden, I think really helped that as well. James sort of like almost coached that into Zubac's game. So I was just so sad. Like I was so sad when that trade first broke because I kind of believe, like, especially at the age that Garland was, Zoo could be a part of the next chapter of the Clippers. And I like the idea that you don't just go straight into like a rebuild or like a retool and whatever you kind of want to call it. I guess the Clippers are gathering assets. So in a sense, it is a rebuild. I don't know if the Clippers will use them as trade chips rather than wait for players to be drafted. Like that obviously depends on what happens in the lottery this year. I didn't like the pick protections at first, but now with a bit more time removed, like in my emotional reaction, I was like, I hate like the two-sided pick protections, and I couldn't really see the like pick return for what it was at the time. But then, in the cold light of day, once the emotion has kind of worn off, it makes it a little bit easier to see that, like, oh no, the Clips have done themselves a real solid here, because you only really want to be in that top like 5 to 7 range anyway. Once you start to fall out of that, you start to get either guys who've fallen out of that range for a reason, or you're just going to start to like get to the area where teams tend to make mistakes a little bit more in the draft. And so the Clips have protected themselves basically from the point of view of, like, if it falls, if Indiana were to go on like a big run now, and that pick went to between 10 and 30, the Clippers then get the protection of, well, we're not just going and getting a rubbish like draft pick now. We'll spin that on to 2031, which, Indiana might be terrible then. Like Zubac will be well into his 30s. Pascal Siakam will be, midway into his 30s as well. Like the core of that Indiana team will be done basically. Tyrese Halliburton, I think, will even be 30 by that stage. So, it looks like Indiana will be a bad team again around that time, sort of, trying to project forward, which I think is always a struggle as well, especially when it's like a player you love being traded for picks. But like, I just think it's more good business in a way again from the Clippers. But I can kind of think that, and also think, like, I'm really sad that Zoo is not going to be a part of this next era of the Clippers.
Completely agree with you there. I was also, as I mentioned, completely devastated by the news, but as sort of time went on, was able to sort of process that I think this was probably the best the Clippers were going to get, and I think was probably broadly because of the Clippers' performances this season. They've done pretty well to sort of claw the season back from the bad start that they've had, but there's not really much point holding on to someone who's ultimately such an asset throughout, or considered such an asset throughout the league, and probably the biggest asset that the Clippers have left, or probably the most tradable. Like, I know that we obviously managed to turn James Harden into Darius Garland. I don't know what they would be able to get for Kawhi, but outside of those two stars, it was really only Zoo, who's obviously last season had a fantastic season, probably his career best in terms of performances. Lots of different pundits and media outlets were claiming that Zoo could have easily been like on the All NBA defensive team last year because that's how good he played. But he's also matured on the offensive end. He's become a far quicker decision maker and clever scorer around the rim, and been a really useful option for the Clippers to fall to, particularly in the postseason against particular matchups. And he's obviously going to be sorely missed from the Clippers. But as I was saying, was just an asset that I think just became more and more easy. It became easier for the Clippers to see a world in which Zoo was no longer on a team. As hard as that was, I think it's probably was the best move for the Clippers moving forward. As we know, they're not littered with draft picks in the coming years. This season's Clippers pick is obviously going to the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2027. OKC still owns the pick swap, and then they finally can shave the shackles of Oklahoma City because they are no longer going to be paying for that Paul George move, and they're finally going to be free after next season. So they are going to start to control their future. They have obviously still given up a large amount of picks to the 76ers through the James Harden trade. So moving James off the team, I I think was probably the first domino to say, I think we're going in another direction. And with the amount of cap space that's going to become available this season, but also in 2027, I think it just makes sense just to try and hit that reset button. I wouldn't use the term rebuild. I know James Harden used the term rebuild. I don't think that is what the team are doing. This is not, they can't tank. They need to be competitive. So I get the strategy of trying to bring in good young players who are clearly talented, try and develop them, but also try and remain competitive throughout the season to avoid the lottery at all costs, because there's no point them entering the lottery in the next 3 seasons at least. They only really start to even get the option of their own pick in 2029. So they need to keep winning basketball games until at least 29 and into 2030, where then they start to own their future. So I was quite pleased by the draft capital they managed to get from Zoo. As you mentioned, 5 to 9 is a pretty good range, and it's essentially a coin toss for them getting that pick. And I think that's going to be really interesting. I don't think any of Clipper Nation have really paid much attention to the draft. The Clippers really haven't had a high draft pick for a number of seasons. I can't even remember the lowest that they've had, at least in the 2-1-3 era. It might have even been Keon Johnson, maybe. Someone might have to fact check that, but I think he was probably the lowest draft pick that they took during this time. They've not had a lottery pick in God knows how long. Obviously, the last really great selection they managed to grab was Shea, and I think that was that the 11th pick or 12th pick from memory. So it's going to be great for the Clippers to be able to potentially select between 5 and 9 this year. I've not got too familiar with the college class that's going to be in the draft this year, but 5 to 9 still gives you a really great talent. And even if he's not going to be part of your rotation for the future, and if the Clippers then pivot to a new star, someone that's easily tradable, and another asset that the Clippers can move. So yeah, I think it was great work by the front office to turn Zoo into that kind of package. They also brought back Benedict Mathurin, someone who I've been a fan of from a distance and sort of monitored his progress. I think he's got abundance of talent, but maybe hasn't shown that consistently in Indiana for whatever reason. Has not been in starting rotation, has been more of a bench option. Seen Pacers fans were not the most happy to see him leave Indiana, which I think is always a good indicator. I think we saw the same when Darius Garland switched to LA as well. A lot of Cleveland fans were upset at that, and I think that's always a good indication where fan base obviously are attached to these players and can see that they are talented. He had some great performances in the finals, which is it's a great experience for someone of his age, to be able to put those kind of performances up and have that on his resume. I think he definitely has a lot of development to do, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But I personally think that he's going to get so much more opportunity with the Clippers. He's going to get a starting spot, and it should be great to see him grow. What are your thoughts on Mathurin joining the Clippers as part of this deal, Josh?
Yeah, excited first and foremost. Like that was again one of those things that like as you remove yourself a little bit more from the Zubac trade and like take a step back and go like, okay, like what's the package that we've got here? Mathurin is someone with like loads of potential upside. He's 23. Which I think like is just like a young age for an NBA player these days. Like you obviously got a lot of players who will come into the NBA around that age because they'll have spent all 5 years or 4 years, if you will, in college. So like it does just feel like there's a lot of potential upside with him. It doesn't mean that there aren't question marks as well. Like there are definitely question marks with him, and that was the bit that maybe like the emotional side of me couldn't really see at first. Was like you've lost one player who could have been a part of the next, era of the Clippers, who will be good for the Clippers because Zubac has been for so many years, and he's an Iron Man and all those kind of things for a guy who just feels like a little bit sketchier. But as you said before, the Clippers kind of had to do this at some point, had to pull the trigger, and Zoo was the big asset, and Mathurin was the odd one out on the Pacers. Like he was. It's not to say that he wasn't good. Like as you mentioned, he was good in the finals and stuff, but in terms of that Pacers core. He wasn't really part of the win now. He's due to be paid, which I'll be interested to see what the Clippers, do with that. I think he's a restricted free agent in the summer, so like whether someone else tries to pay for him in the Clippers, match it, whether the Clippers just go in straight away and be like, cards on the table, this is what we want to pay you, or whether they can just get him back on a qualifying offer. I'd be slightly surprised by that, but if they could just get him back on a qualifying offer, then it gives them a lot of flexibility really with him going
Yeah.
forward. So I'm really excited to see what it looks like on the court. You've definitely seen already through the first like the past few games, I should say, his first few games for the Clippers, like even down into garbage time, and in that first Rockets game of the back-to-back, like Ty just gave him all the run. Like I think he played like nearly 11 minutes in that fourth quarter, and looked good, alongside some of the sort of younger guys on the Clippers roster. So really excited for what he can bring. He just feels like another like live wire player, like energy, athleticism, all the kind of
Yeah.
things that have become hallmarks of like the Clippers in the Intuit Dome era, let's call it. Like you think of all the big highlights you've seen from Intuit Dome, and I know like James Harden, and there's some James Harden threes and things like that that are a part of it, and maybe in more recent days some Kawhi Leonard things, because the things Kawhi Leonard is doing on the court are just stupid, to be honest. But like it's Derek Jones Jr. catching lobs. It's all these different things. Like Mathurin fits right into that almost like lob city thing. And hearing Darius Garland on the broadcast of that
Yeah.
first Rockets game as well, talking about how he wants to come and work hard and throw lobs, was basically like the third thing he said in that list of things. Like Benedict Mathurin, that'll be music to his ears. It's music to my ears certainly, because I'm very excited by this player and the energy he can bring.
Yeah, and I think he kind of fills that Norman Powell gap as well that the Clippers have
Mm.
clearly missed this season. Let's be honest. Like, I think that is probably won't make. I don't know if the front office regret that, but I think a lot of the Clippers fans have noticed his absence this season of just having that alternative scoring option. Obviously, we know that they've swapped James Harden for Darius Garland, so the Clippers have a point guard who can move the ball, which means we're not lacking in that area with James departing. But I think having Mathurin and just another scoring option outside of Kawhi and Garland is just going to be quite exciting. He's only 23. I do think he molds as that kind of Norman Powell type, like a far greater offensive talent than he is a defensive talent. I really do, I think there are lots of limitations on his defensive ability, which is kind of strange given his size and athleticism. Like he's a player that I see as like a big body and someone who can score in sort of bursts of pace, but I think he has building blocks to become, even a decent defensive player. And he's, as I said, he's only 23. Other players have made significant leaps in their defensive game at latter points in their career. So I think, and in regards to your point on sort of the contract situation, I think the Clippers just see what they have with him. They've got abundance of games left, potentially even a play-in matchup with whomever falls into that range left for the season for him to develop, and for the Clippers just to see what they have with him. And I think, yeah, I'd be keen to see him spend another season with the Clippers just whilst we're going through this period. His production has been pretty good. He's never really averaged below sort of around 15 points in the league. Believe he's on a current career high at the moment, 17.8. That is not including the two games he's played with the Clippers. He's made significant leaps in his three-point shooting abilities, which will be music to the ears of Clippers and all of Clipper Nation. Last season, he averaged 34% from three on 4 attempts per game. He's obviously got more opportunity this season due to where the Pacers are, with obviously Halliburton being out for the season. He's shooting 5.6 three-point attempts per game. That is a 1.6 increase from 2024-25. And also, yeah, as I said, it's seen a jump in his three-point percentage and efficiency as well. He's now shooting this season 37.2. That was his stats with the Pacers. And his points per game have also gone up as well. 16.1 last season, 17.8 this season. Not much in the way of improvement in the defensive metrics, but is starting to rack up a few more assists. But I wouldn't consider him a playmaker. Maybe that's something he can learn. And again, I'm not someone who's watched a whole lot of Indiana this season or even last season, but I know they like to play with a lot of pace. I don't know if the ball was ever ran through him. I assume probably more through guards like Halliburton, like TJ McConnell. Maybe we can see development in that side of the game as well. But as I've mentioned, he is only 23. He's 24 in the summer, and there's plenty more for him to develop. And very very keen to see how he gets on. Obviously, he has played 2 games with the Clippers, which we can touch on. But I also did want to speak just very quickly on Isaiah Jackson, but also sort of do what we did in the last pod, as we did for James Harden, and a bit of a farewell to Ivica Zubac, has obviously been a Clippers icon over the past almost 10 years that he's been with the franchise. So just on Isaiah Jackson, obviously he joins from the Pacers. He was the 22nd overall pick in the 2021 draft. And I think in the early part of his career, quickly became one of the better backup centers in the NBA. But unfortunately, went through an Achilles tear in I believe it was last season. So that can be incredibly disruptive to the development of a younger player. I believe he's coming to the Clippers with 2 years left on his deal, but it's a fairly decent value deal. And yeah, I think as a backup center, again, because obviously the Clippers are shipping out Zoo, who's obviously one of the better centers in the league. The Clippers are now naturally going to fall back onto Brook Lopez, who I think has sort of turned a corner, at least from his earlier performances where maybe he hadn't hit the ground running. I think he's been far more reliable this side of the bad run the Clippers went through, and for him to come in and offer competition for Yannick Konan-Niederhauser, who again is I think has also taken leaps in his rookie season, and just provide that competition just makes sense and just gives them a bit more depth in their front court, which I think that obviously they needed when they were sending Zoo out the door. I think just overall on these moves, I get the sense that the Clippers have sort of replaced both Zoo and James in kind of like an aggregate where I don't think we are missing in an area, and potentially have probably added more in terms of like profiles to the team. Again, probably I would say that the level of the team is definitely taken a step back because of you've got James Harden, one of the better offensive talents in the league. As I think I mentioned on the last pod, I rate him as a top 5 offensive player in the league. And also Zoo as well, who again I think is definitely easily a top 10 center in the league as well, and has obviously been an amazing servant to the team. But whilst the talent I think has dropped, I think there is a greater depth that has been provided to this team. And as I said, they are young players, so they're only going to develop. I don't think the Clippers are missing a particular profile on this team now. So I'm just excited to see how Ty Lue and Jeff Van Gundy pull it all together, really. But any thoughts on Isaiah Jackson, Josh, just before we sort of go to that farewell to Zoo, which I'm not looking forward to, if I'm honest.
It could be an emotional one, that the little farewell to Zoo that we're gonna do. Yeah, I'll try and pull myself a little bit out of that. Like the Isaiah Jackson thing is interesting. I think there's really like 2 ways this can go, where I can see him like kind of contributing in a way that like we've not really seen so much of so far. Like he's not even in the rotation. DMP coach's decision for the second night of the Clippers back to back, plays garbage time in the first night of the back to back against the Rockets. So like they kind of like don't offer much up to us in terms of like an insight in the way that it does with Mathurin, and obviously we can kind of project forward where we think Darius Garland's gonna fit into the rotation in terms of minutes and stuff like that. And obviously the point guard position is just there for him the minute that he does
Yeah.
come into that rotation. But with Isaiah Jackson, it's interesting because like you say, the money is such that the Clippers can both like see how it happens and see whether it works, but equally like he'd be quite nice as a trade chip alongside like a couple of those other contracts. Like if they do decide to get off Kawhi in the summer, for example, you could see that being bunched in with Isaiah Jackson's contract, or and any of those kind of things. Really, he's got that nice tradable contract, like you say. So he's an interesting profile of player. He's more slight than Montrezl Harrell, but that's the kind of player
Yeah.
that like I almost look at him in the same mold as, like both 6'9", like really rangy, that those kind of like wingspans that you can just see like when they there's a point where he grabbed the ball down by his side in garbage time of the Rockets game, and like it felt like the ball was on the floor. Like his wingspan is huge, good rebounder, decent enough like in terms of rim protection. It seems like like passable in the way that Montrezl Harrell was passable, but then also another one of those guys, like maybe not as much on the offensive end as Montrezl Harrell, but like is capable of being
Mhm.
like a bit of a rim rocker and stuff like that. Another guy that I think could, catch lobs from his teammates too. So I don't know with Isaiah Jackson. Like I think there's a world in which he could be a complete non-factor and just like something that came in the trade to make salaries match up. Or he could be someone that like kind of is a background contributor. I do think it's like the center spot is where we've lost out the most from the trades that we've done. Like I know what you're saying in terms of like, rotation wise and numbers wise, like we've not lost anything, but like we've gone from, as I say, one of the best centers in the league to like there's definitely question marks over that now. Like Brook Lopez is not a long-term option for the Clippers,
No.
even though he's been a nice short-term option. I'd have probably been starting Yannick at this stage if I was the Clippers, but I think
Yeah.
they don't want to like sort of show their hand in terms of like they want to keep making sure they're a winning team and everyone knows they're a winning team going forward, and they're still pushing for that. So like starting the vets, is optically more of a thing for that. And I guess Brook is, a decent enough fit alongside the guys. Yannick I've been impressed with. Like he does look like he's got genuine NBA potential now. Whether that's realized on the Clippers or not remains to be seen. I still think there'll be moves that are done in to bring in more in that center spot, and that's where we'll see how all three of these options fit.
Yeah. And I guess I again we'll see how that moves forward. I think I actually agree with you. I think I wouldn't be against starting Yannick in, the near future. I think potentially Ty and the coaching staff value having Brook Lopez's experience to sort of guide the Clippers through this transition period. But from what I've seen of Yannick, at least over the last few games, I've been pretty impressed with his production. And like you said, I don't expect Brook to hang around for the near future. So I hope that he's the guy that we start to fall to or start to look to, because he clearly has got some talent, maybe more so than Clipper fans thought after the team had drafted him. But the centre market is looking potentially decent in the summer. I think we maybe spoke in the week about potentially having a reunion with Isaiah Hartenstein. I think that would be the dream scenario for me, potentially for yourself and many other Clipper fans. He's been one of the centers the Clippers have had that I've enjoyed watching the most, and is now NBA champion, could potentially be two-time NBA champion by the end of this season. I believe he has a player option, and if he fancies coming back to LA, they've got a spot ready for him, and I would love to see him come back with the Clippers. I think it's probably a bit early to start having these kind of conversations, but if the Clippers want to fill in that space left by Zoo, I don't think there's a better option in the league who becoming available, potentially becoming available. As I said, he may choose to re-sign with the Thunder, but maybe we can save that conversation for another time. But it's one of those things that came to my mind instantly because I've been clamoring for the Clippers to find a reunion with Hartenstein. I just think he's absolutely incredible. Yeah, would love to see him join the team again. But unfortunately, it's come the time to say goodbye to Ivica Zubac, who has been an incredible servant to the Clippers over the past few seasons. Initially drafted by the Lakers in the 2016 NBA draft. And fortunately, they were silly enough to trade him to the Clippers in February 2019 in exchange for Mike Muscala. Probably one of the best trades the Clippers have ever made. One of the probably most underrated trades in all of the NBA, just because of how incredible value that was. The Clippers brought him in as a raw prospect, just a young center coming out of Croatia. Hadn't had much experience with the Lakers, but obviously I think got to play a little with some of the veteran guys over there as they were sort of going through a bit of like a transition period, and has quickly become one of the NBA's most reliable starting centers. Would still argue one of the most underrated players in the NBA. I don't think the Pacers really know what they're getting with Zoo, and I think they're going to learn quickly. And I can easily see him becoming a fan favorite in Indiana, especially if he can make a big impact on their title aspirations over the next few seasons. And I would love nothing more than, if it's not going to be the Clippers, then I would love it to be Ivica Zubac to get a title. He's just been absolutely awesome. An Iron Man for the Clippers, playing, so many games, being available, rarely injured, rarely going through big, extensive periods outside the team, which I think has been incredibly valuable, particularly through this period of the Clippers through the 2-1-3 era. He's just constantly been someone the Clippers have been able to turn to, and yeah, just earning all defensive second team honors last season, posting a career high of 16.8 points, 12 rebounds. He's had incredible standout games, 30-point games, triple doubles. Just a fantastic servant for the LA Clippers, a fan favorite. The president of basketball operations, Lawrence Frank, mentioned that there was a lot of tears when Zoo found out. Obviously, he was leaving, and the team found out as well. I believe he spent over 6 hours in the facilities saying goodbye to everyone, and that just shows like how loved he was. And yeah, I'm really, really sad to see Zoo go. He was one of my favorites. I've obviously been following ever since he joined the team. Fortunate enough to see him up close and personal when I got the chance to go to the crypto.com arena a couple of seasons ago. And just, yeah, a fantastic player, and just wish him all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Like concur on everything you've said there. A genuine Clippers legend. I think what's always so hard, in sports in general, is when you've watched someone like grow before your very eyes. And I mentioned before that, people used to be a bit critical of Zoo for, the maybe being a little bit lackluster with it with his hands, and sometimes he wasn't like that real energy player. But I think you saw his leadership grow over the last couple of years, and that's what kind of makes it even harder as he went from being like this. I mean, literally, like, look at the stature of him. I know he's obviously always been like a 7 footer, but when he first came in from the Lakers, he was like this kind of skinny 7 footer, was, quite easily bullied in the paint.
Yeah,
Once he started to gain a bit of size, that's when, the more technical question marks came up. Like, there just aren't question marks about Ivica Zubac anymore. He's a
yeah,
premier NBA player, as I said, top five center in the NBA. No more questions about his hands. In fact, the biggest question became like, will Ty ever let him shoot threes? Like, that's genuinely the point we got to with
we never
Zubac.
got
Like,
to see it. We never got to see
exactly.
it.
We didn't get to see it, but like the touches became a non-issue in the end. But even that, like the progression from being like, oh, will he bulk up to going through the whole spectrum of like what things will he do to will they give him enough touches, shows the progression that we witnessed of Ivica Zubac with the Clippers. And I'm just gonna miss him so much. Like, I'm sad that he's not gonna be a part of this next era, because I think that's the thing that we had with, it's a similar thing we had with Shea, where once a team does sort of go into a new era, you like to have something you can hang your hat on as like, oh, that was something that came from the past era. Like, that was one of the long-serving players. And I know Zoo was kind of that because he was around when Shea was there, and Terrence Mann was, around for a bit of that as well, coming into the sort of Kawhi and Paul George era. But like, knowing that era is like completely dead now, as in like, the early stages, the underdog Clippers, all that kind of thing, like knowing that is now completely gone. And soon, if Kawhi gets traded, it may be like really over. Is just like it's just tough because again, it's all these things that you can like hang your hat on as the people we saw progress and like grow before our very eyes. Like, they won't be on the Clippers anymore. So it's part of like the reality of sports, but it doesn't make it any less sad, really. The one thing that like is going to give me solace is that Indiana is going to go straight into championship contention next season, and obviously,
Yeah,
I hope the Clippers are up there if they make the move for Isaiah Hartenstein. Like you say, I could see a world in which they are still a contender, because that would be like unbelievable if they can find a way to make that trade, or make that signing happen. Um, but yeah, it's going to be, tough for them to find a way to fill the void that Ivica Zubac left, because in the end, it wasn't just the void of like a brilliant NBA center. It was the void of a brilliant personality, someone who led by example for the Clippers, someone who did become a leader from the Clippers from this like wet behind the ears center that we somehow got in a trade with Mike Muscala. Obviously, using this time to give Mike Muscala his flowers as well. Thank you so much, Clipper legend, for making sure that we could bring Ivica Zubac to the organization and that we got to have this brilliant few years of watching this player develop into what he is now.
Yeah, shout out Mike Muscala, shout out Ivica Zubac, and shout out Magic Johnson because it was actually Magic Johnson that
Yeah,
made that
thank you.
trade. So yeah, shout out all of them. I've enjoyed this journey incredibly, watching Zoo grow, as you mentioned, just like season by season, each postseason, just watching him have like better game after better game, better performance after better performance against like some of the best centers in the league, like notably Nikola Jokic. Like always enjoyed watching that matchup with Zoo, and I think he relished it as well. So can't wait to see what's next for him. Like obviously he's in his peak now. He's just getting into his 30s, which is crazy to think about. And yeah, really hope Indiana have a fantastic season next season. I hope they pick up form this season as well, so the Clippers get that pick. I think they've been a little bit of hot water with the NBA over the last day. I think they've been fined $100,000 for roster management, and obviously clearly they are tanking. They're in tanking mode. Fortunately, I think they won the other night. They managed to beat the Knicks.
They've
So
actually
that
they've actually won two on the bounce. So
two
like
on
if
the
you look if
spin.
you look at all the teams like from Dallas downwards, because Dallas have lost nine in a row. So Dallas are
Yeah.
1-9 in their last 10.
Mhm.
And basically everybody else besides New Orleans, I think, has been like really, really actively losing. So um I'm saying there's a chance.
There is absolutely a chance. 50-50 it stands right now. Obviously that can change as it proceeds, but it will never go further than 50-50. I think it can only get more in the Clippers' favor. Obviously, if the Pacers win games, if they continue to lose, there's still a 50-50 chance. So I'll take those odds. I'll absolutely take those odds. And yeah, the Indiana have got a new fan for the rest of the season. I'm going to be supporting them all the way, hoping they win all the games because it'd be fantastic to go into the NBA draft finding out the Clippers are going to select a new young talent. And just to sort of go back to your point on Kawhi being sort of the last man standing, I just can't help but think of the Ninja Turtles Master Splinter meme where it's like Master
Oh
Splinter sort of
no.
like holding the hands of like all the young Ninja Turtles. And I think that's Kawhi right now, who's been playing fantastically. Like he's just come off an unbelievable performance against Houston Rockets, game winner and one game winner. And yeah, he's just the old dude on the team now. Like everyone else is younger guys. He's showing them the way, but he's still performing at like an incredibly high level. And I think as the seasons go on, if he does stick around, it's gonna eventually evolve to that the other part of the meme where it's like Martin Splinter is really old, and then you've got like the grown Ninja Turtles, which I'm hoping is going to be Mathurin Garland, Kobe Sanders, Yannick. Yeah, I'm probably forgetting a few names there. Cam Christie.
Yeah, Jordan
Yeah,
Miller.
the
Keep,
Jordan
keep
Miller.
it coming. All these next
Yeah,
generation Clippers.
whoever's going to be 5 to 9 if the Clippers get that as well. Like, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I'm like a lot more excited about this next era of the Clippers than I was when we were recording a few months ago. I think the front office, although they've come under a lot of pressure, a lot of scrutiny over the last few months, and obviously, had some emergency meetings between Lawrence Frank and fans, and yeah, just general discontent around the front office. I'm going to give them their flowers right now. I think they've done a fantastic job to make good out of what has become quite a bad and bleak situation. Obviously, the looming risk of becoming a lottery team and just arming the Thunder with more weapons to destroy the NBA with, which not only Clippers fans were annoyed about, but obviously the rest of the NBA is also like, come on, we need the Clippers to win games. So I think they've done fantastically well out of what was a difficult situation. Obviously, it's not over yet. They've got far more work to do to try and build this roster over the next few years to get them back to a level where we can compete for a championship. But I think these were right moves, and I subscribe to them wholly. I did want before we close, I did want to quickly touch on the two games that we've had with the new players. So we played back to back against the Houston Rockets. Unfortunately, we dropped the first one 102.95. Again, still like stellar performances from Kawhi Leonard. Got good production out of John Collins, who I think has been playing fantastically well as of recently. Been the power forward that the Clippers have been asking for a lot over recent seasons. Didn't see a whole lot out of the new guys. Zai Jackson, only 5 minutes, 5 points. I say decent production given the limited game time. Just the 9 points out of Benedict Mathurin, played 26 minutes, but I think that's expected. First game for a new team, trying to learn the schemes of Ty Lue, Jeff Van Gundy, but also how to play with the rest of the players. Like it is quite a different way of playing from Indiana, I imagine. I wasn't too fussed around his ability in this game. Still recorded 7 rebounds, 4 assists, even managed to record 3 steals as well. So how's that for no defensive ability? Though clearly is something there. Ended with a +4 as well. So I was pretty happy with this considering it was a drop. What were your thoughts on this performance, Josh?
Yeah, like I kind of said on the last show that I thought the Clippers would split this series. I kind of thought it would go the way it did as well. Like I probably thought Houston would have like a lot less in the second game than they actually did. They still gave the Clippers a really good game in that second game. The Clippers just like went, above and beyond in that one really.
Hmm.
But in terms of the first one, like not a whole lot to say. Like the Clippers are going to be going through this period of adaptation now, and you've referenced it with the new guys. Like you see Mathurin come in, and he really struggles until the fourth quarter. But the fourth quarter is garbage time. So 7 of his 9 points come in the fourth quarter. Isaiah Jackson, like all his minutes come in garbage time. So like I don't know how much you can read into any of that really, but the things that you would say that are like standing out, as you say, like John Collins. I keep talking about guys that you want to see be the next era of the Clippers.
Hmm.
And John Collins is absolutely one of them. Like I almost wanted to shout when you were saying then about like John Collins. I want to be like, pay the money because he is due to be paid in the summer. I don't
Yeah.
want the Clippers to let him walk. I don't know what the money looks like. I heard them on 213 Hoops discussing this the other day on the Lord the Jam the podcast, I should say.
Hmm.
And they were saying like, what is the money? And the first figure that came to my head was like 20 million. I think 20 million is, a fair amount for John Collins with the production that you're saying he's been delivering. I think that's
Yeah.
like absolutely spot on, really. So that's the kind of, where I can see him
Yeah.
falling into that kind of range. And you get another
Great.
good game from him. You get good defensive games from like Chris Dunn, 4 steals. Just gave KD hell through both of these games, really. And even that's like a really interesting
Yeah.
matchup. The fact that the Clippers decide to put Chris Dunn on KD, I think was just interesting. As I say, like he was good from three in that first game, Kevin Durant, but like you're never going to be able to completely shut Kevin Durant down. And what Chris Dunn was able to do was to like stop him in terms of in the paint touches and things like that. You see with his 37% from the field, so lows to
Yeah.
like from the first performance from the Clippers, and it only got better in the second game.
Yeah, as you said, even better in the second game, managed to get the win with as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, a game winner from Kawhi Leonard, which was an and one. He's just been on an absolute tear recently. I think easily one of the best players in the league for like the last 2 months, and just feels like Kawhi loves this part of the year, like the All-Star run in, and then like the post All-Star run out as well. Like just I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about these months. He just locks in. He got 27 points in 33 minutes. Just a fantastic performance. Obviously, won the game for the Clippers in the end. But the Clippers had 6 players on double-digit points as well, which I think just shows what we were speaking about last week around like removing James out of the equation is just going to move the ball more. It means more touches for other players, and clearly there's a lot of offensive talent around that you can sort of share that load out a bit more. Even the new guy, Benedict Mathurin, 16 points, which is obviously great improvement on the previous game in 31 minutes. Not the best in terms of offensive efficiency, but was a bit of a foul magnet in this game. He went to the line 10 times and netted 9 of those attempts. So, yeah, and I think just an all-round good performance from him. And that's really exciting to see just from his second performance to start filling up the stat sheet a bit more. obviously moving the ball, 3 assists, again, 3 steals again. So clearly like getting more active on the defensive end. Even got a block in there as well. Only 1 turnover, so just being efficient. And I think that's all we can ask for. Just like to keep playing at that level, playing consistently with the minutes that he gets. So he got a whole lot of minutes in this game, and yeah, just really excited to see how he takes it from there and how Tyloo and Jeff Van Gundy take him from there as well. I think maybe the downside I probably haven't mentioned, and I do want to wrap this up in a second, but probably the downside of these additions is maybe some of the younger guys not getting as many minutes. I think Kobe Sanders only 10 minutes in this game. Jordan Miller got a bit more of a look, which I think when Darius Garland comes back, it's going to be even more impacted, and we are going to start to see what we were used to with the Clippers, where maybe some of the younger, rawer guys are not getting as much as of a look in. But I think there's still going to be an abundance of opportunity, and fortunately enough, they've had a lot of opportunity to prove themselves, and I think they all have proven that they can contribute. Obviously, Kobe Sanders recently announced that he was getting his NBA contract. Don't think there's been anything said on Jordan Miller, unless I'm forgetting
Not yet.
something, but we're still waiting for
Banton's
that.
still on the roster, isn't he? So I think once
Yeah,
his 10-day clears, that'll be it then.
yep, exactly. But yeah, glad to go into All-Star break with a win. Obviously, All-Star break will be in LA at Intuit Dome. Looking forward to watching that because we've got Kawhi Leonard in the All-Star game. I think Yannick in the Rising Stars. A bit of a shame for Kobe Sanders because I think obviously he's been around a bit more, but obviously just didn't make the cut there. In terms of a little bit of a forward look after the All-Star break, some tough matchups. Nuggets straight away next Friday, followed by the Lakers. Again, the Clippers have fancied their chances against the Lakers. I wonder when we see Darius Garland. I imagine it won't be in the next couple weeks. I think from the sounds of it, they're taking their time with him. I think from my understanding of Lawrence Frank's most recent presser about him, they potentially agreed that he'd maybe been not ready to come back and provide for the Cavs, given he had the surgery on his toe. So they're not even worried about the current injury he has. It's more the surgery he had in the summer, and I think it's the right toe that he had done there. So I think they're being a bit cautious with him, which is understandable. They can clearly still win games. I think they can still hover around 500 and sort of split the games across the rest of the season. They'll make the play in. They'll avoid the lottery, and there's no need to rush Garland back for anything in particular. The Clippers are just going to get in the play in and see what happens from there. So excited about the All-Star break and then a run and the next few games. I don't know if we'll have a pod next week. It depends if any news lands. So we'll keep an eye out, see if anything major happens. Last time I said that, the Clippers traded Zubac, so I'm hoping nothing negative comes out in the next few weeks. I'm going to touch wood right now, but yeah, thanks as always, Josh. Really enjoyed this one. Remind everyone where they can find you and all the content that you produce, not just for the Clippers, but also the NBA generally as well.
Yeah, J Sexton 24 across the socials, loads of NBA content, football content if you like that kind of thing as well. But fair play if you don't.
Absolutely. Cheers, Josh, again. We'll speak to you when we speak to you, and go Clips go.